What's up, Guardians? Profane here. Thanks for checking out the video. In just over a week, Heresy will be launching, and when this new episode goes live, there's going to be a lot of changes getting made that will have a significant impact on your current loadouts and the exotics that you build around. 39 total exotics are getting reworked, with 21 exotic weapons included in that list and 18 exotic armor pieces. A lot of these changes will greatly improve the performance of these exotics and should create a lot of variety in build crafting. And because of these upcoming changes, a few of these exotics should even have some major impact on optimal damage throughout Heresy. And in today's video, we're going to be breaking down all the changes that will be made to these exotics. And we're going to start with the exotic armor, where we're going to be checking out all the hunter exotic armor that will be getting updated. There will be 6 hunter exotics updated in this upcoming patch. The sealed Ahamkara grasps will now grant increased weapon damage for a short duration whenever drawing your weapon while Nightmare Fuel is active. And as you build up charges of Nightmare Fuel, you'll now have all your holstered weapons automatically reloaded, making it a lot easier to deal optimal damage whenever you have that damage bonus active. A pretty solid update for this forgotten about exotic. After roaming supers got a recent upgrade with increased damage, we now see the Gwisen Vest getting its own update, which should work out nicely for Spectral Blade. You'll now be able to extend the duration of your super whenever landing final blows before going invisible, and that's in addition to the ones that you get when you are invisible. The maximum duration of Spectral Blades will be extended, so you'll be able to utilize this super for a lot longer, as long as you have enough enemies to defeat. Whenever you're in Spectral Blades and come out of your invisibility, you will now cast a cloud of smoke that will weaken all nearby enemies, granting you with a 15% increase in damage against those targets. When compared to other exotic combinations, Gwisen Vest and Spectral Blades have always found themselves at the bottom of the totem pole, but these changes might finally see this combination getting used more. The Renewal Grasp will become a much better option in terms of survival now that Frost Armor will build up twice as fast whenever standing within your grenade, and this benefit will extend out to the Spirit of Renewal, which is found on prismatic exotic class items. The Radiant Dance Machines will finally see the multiple dodge charges counting as real dodges, which will mean that these will work in better harmony with various aspects and fragments, allowing hunters to generate more melee and more class ability energy. Primary weapons will become a more powerful option for Radiant Dance Machines, as this weapon type will now refund bonus dodge energy, and whenever dodge energy is already full, multi-kills with primary weapons will grant extra charges. The Foe Tracers will see a slight upgrade, getting its damage bonus extended from 10 seconds to 15. Foe Tracers provides a 25% bonus in weapon damage, so with 5 more seconds of this bonus, players should be able to deal out a lot more damage, and this benefit will extend over to the Spirit of Foe Tracer. One other spirit that will be getting updated is the Spirit of Galanor. This spirit will now provide 20% less energy return whenever using Silk Strike or Golden Gun Super. This change was made to prevent players from recharging these roaming supers too quickly, but it does not affect the return on any other super. And that wraps up all the changes coming to Hunter Exotics, so let's change gears and take a look at our Titans. Titans are going to see a total of 6 exotics getting upgraded. Titan's Rampart's Assault Barricade will now have better functionality in PVE. The barricade will have increased health, going from 400 to 500 points. Equipping this exotic will no longer decrease the duration of your barricade, and it will no longer increase the barricade cooldown. So it'll be interesting to see how these changes play out, and how big of an impact this exotic will make. Eternal Warrior will have some slight adjustments made, and it will now extend the duration of your super whenever landing final blows. You'll continue to gain bonus weapon damage on ability final blows, and you'll continue to receive the maximum bonus damage after your super ends. So by extending Fist of Havoc, this should become a much more viable option for crowd control. The Ursa Furiosa will be slightly less effective in Heresy, and it will no longer provide super energy whenever absorbing damage with unbreakable shields. Instead, it's going to provide grenade energy, but that energy will not be granted until the end of the shield, and this change will carry over into the Spirit of the Bear. Kepri's Horn is getting some much needed adjustments, and this will now cause barricades to project out 3 waves of solar flames instead of 1. The flames won't travel back to the barricade, but when the flames strike enemies, they will create a sunspot. This benefit will be carried over into the Spirit of Kepri, and whenever it's used on Prismatic with the Thruster's class ability, there's going to be 4 waves of solar flames instead, and they will shoot out in an X pattern. The one caveat to using this exotic is that you will need to have a solar super equipped. The Insurmountable Skull Fort should be much more effective in in-game content. This exotic will now grant bonus melee energy whenever hitting targets with a melee attack, and that does include glaives. Powered melees provide the least amount of bonus energy, with unpowered melees providing the most. This should greatly improve the uptime of any powered melee ability, and considering Ballistic Slam and Juggernaut are both getting upgrades in terms of damage, it might be a great option to start utilizing this exotic. We move over to Warlocks to break down our final 6 exotic armor pieces. The Storm Dancer's Brace will get a bit of a mixed update, and it's now going to build up its damage bonus during supers faster, and Ionic Blink will drain much less super energy whenever activated. But this exotic will provide much less return energy towards your next super, and it's now going to provide a maximum of 30% instead of 50%. The Geomag Stabilizers will see some exciting changes, including some new visual effects whenever you have bolt charges active. Whenever a bolt charge is near its max, the Geomag Stabilizers will fill the charge by sprinting, and whenever you collect Ionic Traces, you'll gain bonus super energy, going from 2% energy to 7%. So between those 2 changes, we'll be able to trigger bolt charges and Chaos Reach much faster. The Secant Filaments have really fallen off, but with this new update, they might become a viable option. Whenever Devour is active, you'll gain bonus class ability energy, which will help you cast more rifts, helping you maintain Devour and the ability to stun Overload champions for a much longer duration, but you still have to be standing within the rift, and this change will carry over into the Spirit of Filaments, which is found on the Prismatic exotic class item. The Speaker's Sight will see some not so favorable changes getting made, and its healing turrets will no longer target allies until damage has been taken. This will decrease the amount of energy that you're able to regenerate whenever using Ember of Benevolence, but overall this shouldn't hurt this exotic and its performance too badly. Verity's Brow is the final Warlock exotic getting updated, and this exotic's intrinsic trait will function more like what we see out of the Worm God Caress. Death throws will now work off of a meter instead of a kill count, but you have to keep getting kills to keep this meter filled. This should ultimately help players maintain the benefits of death throws for a longer duration, as long as you're able to stay engaged in combat, but the benefits of this exotic will decay as the meter drains. Just like all the other exotics that have class item counterparts, this too will see its benefits carried over into the Spirit of Verity, which is an exotic class item perk that can be utilized on all 3 classes. But this version of Verity will provide just half of the overall benefits that the actual exotic does. And that's now covered all of the exotic armor that will be changed in Heresy. So let's go ahead and take a look at the 21 exotic weapons that are also getting updated. The Lorentz Driver should become a much stronger option in Heresy, as you'll gain more benefits whenever collecting bounty tags. Picking up a bounty tag will now generate 1 round of ammo to the magazine, and whenever Lagrangian Sight is first triggered, you'll have 6 rounds of ammo put directly into the magazine. Picking up a bounty tag provides a 50% bonus in damage, but these are only going to last for 60 seconds, so you'll need to be prompt on collecting them. With a 10% increase in damage that all linear fusion rifles are receiving, the Lorentz Driver will have the opportunity to shine once again during Heresy. It'll be easier than ever to activate the Delicate Tomb's Tempest Cascade, as you'll have a 10% chance of creating Ionic Traces off of every minor enemy. This is up from 4%, and to make things even sweeter, the damage bonus of Tempest Cascade will be increased from 30% to a 100% increase in damage. With bolt charges and new arc turrets in the mix, the Delicate Tomb should make a great option with a lot of arc-centric builds. Darcy receives one of the most impressive upgrades, and this will now do for sniper rifles what the Gallarhorn and Ergo Sum have done for rockets and swords. When Personal Assistant is active, you will grant yourself and all nearby allies with an increase in overall performance and damage to any non-exotic sniper rifle, providing its wielder and allies with as much as a 15% increase in damage, and that could really optimize damage during several raid encounters, like the Witness, Nezarec, and Oryx. All 3 class-specific exotic glaives will be getting updated. This includes the Edge of Concurrence, the Edge of Action, and Edge of Intent. The special shot of these exotics will no longer be tied to glaive energy, but instead it will be based on consecutive weapon hits. The Edge of Concurrence will now have jolting feedback added to its intrinsic perk, with the Edge of Action receiving destabilizing rounds. The Edge of Intent will receive the same treatment with its healing turrets as the Speaker's Sight, but Cure is getting added to its healing, and this will now receive the benefits of Incandescent. It'll be easier to maintain the benefits of Centrifuge's blinding explosions with its magazine size getting increased to 45, and with auto rifles receiving a 10% increase against minor and major enemies. This will be a great weapon to use with those arc-centric builds. All of the exotics that include the Fundamentals perk will now gain a 30% bonus in damage whenever collecting a matching elemental pickup. This includes the Hardlight, the Dead Messenger, and the Borealis. In addition to the increase in damage, the Borealis will receive some improvements to its stability and its aim assist. Bungie's making a brave move in upgrading the Telesto. Harbinger Pulse will now only refill Telesto's ammo from reserves, but that can be triggered on any Void Final Blow, but it's only going to take 2 Final Blows with the Telesto, whereas other sources of Void Final Blows would require 3. In addition to the ammo functionality, the Telesto's Catalyst will gain a new feature, and will now cast a rain of Telesto shots at enemies, but this is only after engaging a special reload function, but this will most likely resemble the Void Projectile Rain that the Old God Rights artifact mod creates. But the special reload is only going to be an option after 3 consecutive Harbinger Pulses.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
The Vexcalibur is getting updated, and it'll be much easier to trigger its Perpetual Loophole trait, which provides you and allies with a Void Overshield. Overshields won't go away as quickly either, and the Vexcalibur's increased projectile damage against the Vex will be increased from 10% to 25%. Striking non-boss Vex enemies with a melee attack will now cause those enemies to become disoriented. The Wardcliff Coil is going to have some special synergy added with bolt charges, as striking enemies with Wardcliff rockets will grant the wielder and nearby allies with stacks of bolt charge, with a maximum of 4 charges getting built per volley. But without an actual bonus and damage getting applied, I'm not sure if this change is enough to really make the Wardcliff stand out in Heresy. The Queenbreaker finally gets the ability to shift between scopes with a special reload. There's also been some further adjustments made to both the Marksman and Combat sights. The range of the chain reaction created by Marksman will be increased to 10 meters, and Combat sights will now be converted into a 3-round burst, firing out at 533 rounds per minute. But by landing consecutive damage, that charge time will be reduced down to 300, and there will be no penalty to damage, so this might end up being a sleeper pick for optimal damage. The colony will see a 40% increase in detonation damage to bring it more in line with other drum grenade launchers, and this will now generate more bots based on what type of enemy that you strike. It's a long shot to say that this would be an effective source of damage, but the colony should do a lot better in crowd control scenarios. Triggering the nano tracer rockets of the Quicksilver Storm will be a lot easier, as the amount of shots required is going to get reduced by 17%. No changes have been made to this weapon's grenade launcher damage, but this should share in the increased auto rifle damage. The Quicksilver Storm was already strong, but you can expect this to really shine in Heresy, especially with strand-centric builds, and builds revolving around the hazardous propulsion. The Legend of Ocarius will finally see the same treatment as other shotguns recently did, and it will now have improvements made to its spread angle and maximum projectile range. This is one of the most powerful up-close DPS exotics, but it's hard to handle, so these changes will make it much easier to be effective with this brute. The 4th Horseman won't be quite as fast on the draw, getting a slight nerf to its rate of fire. Bungie states that this is meant to help improve weapon control and mitigate wasted shots. In addition to this change, this exotic will now load ammo from reserves on final blows, which is a really exciting change that could see this exotic getting used a lot more. The Lord of Wolves is getting a complete revamp to its systems, and its Release the Wolves mode will now trigger on hip fire instead of special reload. This weapon will have increased range, but reduced base damage, and when Release the Wolves is active, this weapon will fire at full auto, and dealing damage to targets will scorch them. But when using this weapon's aim down sights, this weapon will gain the effects of Incandescent instead. So in many ways, this will function more like the Choir of One, which should see this weapon getting a fair bit of use in Heresy, especially from hunters with Mask of Bakris builds. The Thunderlord and Cloudstrike will both receive some adjustments to make these exotics cohesive with bolt charges. So both the Stormbringer perk and Rain Havoc perk will have the ability of building additional bolt charges, stacking on top of whatever your build may already provide, or providing them for you if your build didn't. With some of the adjustments that ARC subclasses are receiving, these are two exotics that you'll want to keep a close eye on, because either of these could become overpowered options whenever stacking on bonus features that a new artifact mod would bring. And with that, we've now covered all the exotic weapons and all the exotic armor that's getting updated when Heresy launches. I think most of these changes are for the good and should really help shine some light on some underused exotics. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about all these changes and everything else coming with Heresy, so let us know what you think down in the comments. Thank you as always for checking out the video. If you enjoyed and found it helpful, then be sure to hit that like button below, along with the subscribe button if you're new. Both are greatly appreciated, and both really do help support the channel. And until next time, Guardians, this has been Profane, wishing you all some happy hunting.